All right. So you are going to be working on a light painting stencil project, and this is a criteria worksheet that you're going to want to reference. With this project, you're going to be creating an activist piece that represents a theme you are passionate about. And here are some helpful hints. First of all, you will need to fill the entire space. You do not want to have a lot of black areas with small designs. So, here are some examples of how the stencil might look. First of all, you're going to have different layers within your stencil. So, you might have like a center area, you might have a border design, as in this design here, which is not necessarily representative of our theme, but it does show you like potential use of space. And so then here is how this project would look once it's light painted. Here's another example where we see a butterfly, a cage, and we notice that there's like a black circle in the middle because when the two layers are overlapped, it looks like this. And then once it's painted, it'll look like this over here on the very right. So let's look at the stencil creation. First of all, you're going to be using a light painting stencil base, which you will be able to find in our files. I'll give you the link. Okay. Currently, we're using Canvas, and so that's where you will find it within our Canvas module. Um, we will be using a variety of different resources to help create this stencil. First, we'll be able to download brushes from brusheasy.com. And if you click on this video, I show you step by step how to go to that website, how to download, how to find brushes, and then upload them into Photoshop so that you can use them in your projects. Also, you have the option of finding images or using your own images. If you find images, you're going to want to find images on the internet and use like Google Images and do a high quality image search by clicking on more. And then it brings up these options, and you want to click on large, which or extra large. So your images should not be smaller than 1,000 by 700 pixels. Okay, so for example, if you put in protest images, select large or extra large, and then you can see here are a few images that were pulled up from that image search. You're going to want to convert these images into black and white, and there's a couple ways you can do it. You can convert it using our black and white layer, and then a high brightness and contrast layer. So here's like the original image, and then adding the contrast, you can see that it adds a little more contrast and adds a little more areas of black and a little more areas of white. You can also take images and convert them into that black and white sketch image that we used to help us create our pop art portrait assignments back in the first semester. So you can follow this video tutorial here, which will show you how to turn your image into a pop art sketch, kind of like what we see down here. Now, as you work on that, you might notice here that, like, here is the image, and this is what it looks like when it was turned into the black and white sketch. But I don't want to keep this white area here. So what I did was I went in with a brush and I painted in all this area around the head in black. And that is because we want to block out light. And so anything that is black will block out light, and anything that is white or gray will allow light to shine through our stencils. So then here is what it looks like when it's light painted. Now, with this particular image, w- two layers were used. This layer here and then this layer here to create this image right here on the right with once all of the light painting has been done. Okay. And you're going to be creating multiple layers. So look at these samples here. So we have this original image here, and then the image was turned into a black and white sketch drawing similar to the pop art technique that we use for our portraits, and then blacked out around the cart with all its trash on it. Some other layers were created, as we can see here in the final image. And this is one's trash, one person's trash is another's treasure. Here are some more examples. Um, we have this kind of like a warning sign, we have a phone, and we have kind of this like gridded wall area. And we can see that the three layers come together and they're painted using different colors. So here's our first layer, which is a red layer. And then our second layer is a green layer. And then our third layer is a blue layer. And then this is all the layers together. And this is what it looks like when you're in the process of creating the initial stencil. Then we have this example, which was actually created with the brush tool. We have some bullseyes, we have this elephant and this trophy. So here are the two layers here. And then we can see that they've used red and orange, and they've used like a purple and a blue tone here on the elephant. Okay, so now you're wondering, okay, so how do I make this? How do I do this? I understand this is the criteria. I understand these are the different tools I can use. So let's look at it even more. Let's look at this example here. So here's an example of maybe a project we might do. Okay, so something you're passionate about. Maybe you really don't like these mask mandates or the fact that they're mandating some shots for different employers. Um, so, maybe you're passionate about this. Okay. So, with this project, you're going to be using text. Okay. So, here over here on the right, we can see all the layers. Okay. It starts off with the figure, and then we can see that the figure has been broken up into a couple different pieces, because they're going to have different colors light painted in those areas. And then we have the text, and then we have this four different needles, and then we have some more text. Okay, so when all the layers are put together, it kind of looks like this. But we're not going to print this and make a stencil out of just one final image. We're going to break it into sections, and then we're going to assign different color to those sections. So let's look at this. All right, so the first layer is the mask only, and these eyes. And the first layer is going to be um, the mask is going to be painted red and the eyes are going to be green. Okay. And then over here on the right, um, we are going to paint the face orange and the syringes are going to be blue. Okay. Now it's okay to like have these be blue and this part orange because they're separated here by some black areas. Okay. So this is layer one, this is layer two. Layer 3 is a back image, and it's basically a brush stamp of all this money, and this is going to be gray, and it's going to be a little bit darker tone because it is these kind of like gray tones, so it's going to block some of the light, and it's going to be painted green. And then we have our final layer, which is going to be the text, which is going to be yellow, and it will stand out pretty brightly against that darker green. And we want this to stand out. Okay. So we have like no mandates. We have our Civil Code 51, which basically is our California law, which states that you cannot, um, you have to accommodate all people and that you cannot, you know, dis, discriminate against any person for any reason. Okay. And then it says, know your rights and follow the money. All right. So now I want to get into the actual editing. So what you want to do is you want to get your images, right? You want to find your images and kind of figure out like what images you're going to use. And here's what my image looks like with all the layers. Okay. In fact, I don't think this is even my most recent one. So let me see if I can actually find my most. I don't know. Maybe I don't know where I put it. Maybe I put it in here. Let's go find my here. I probably put it in here, like painting stencils. Hopefully this is the most recent one. We'll see. Yeah, this is the most recent one. Okay. And this is part is in black because I'm just gonna, make this area here orange. And then I had to like make a separate layer for just this part here for the mask to be red so that I could paint this red and paint this area orange around it. Okay. So let's close out this one here. Okay. There we go. Um did I just close the wrong one? I think I did. Let's go open that up again. Here we go. Okay. So I will close this one here. Okay. So what you need to do is first just design everything and just figure out how you're going to have everything laid out, okay? Because eventually what we're going to do is we're going to churn off these layers so that we can print just sections, okay? So for example, I would turn this layer off, and I'll be doing this for you guys, okay? So I'll be doing all the printing for you. So all you have to do is let me know when it's ready to be printed. Just let me know how it needs to be separated out, and then I will print out the layers for you. So like here's like a layer that I would print, right? So this is the money layer, and I basically got that from brusheasy.com. And so follow that video to learn how to do that, how to download brushes. And I just stamped this into here. Okay, so I just went to my brush tool here and I went and found my money images, which are not downloaded on this computer. So I'll go ahead and import them here really quickly. Okay. And so like if I opened up this file, I have different denominations of money. Um, Actually, I need to import the correct one. So let's go see if I don't think I have it on my computer actually. So never mind. But if let's say I were going to add something else to this, so I might add a new layer here, and there you go. All right. That's how you import a brush. Okay. The video also shows you how to do it. Okay. So let's get rid of that because I don't need that. So you'll notice that I added a layer mask to this money layer. Okay. And the reason why I added this layer mask is because I wanted it to be black around where the head area is, okay? Because I don't want the money to be overlapping my head area. So that's why I added in the layer mask here right next to the money layer. So if you look over here on the right, we can see the money layer, and then here is the layer mask, and I just took out all of this money so that when the head is in place, it doesn't overlap onto the head, because otherwise look what would happen. Okay, so if I do that, then look, then the money's there, right? I don't, maybe on some projects you might want to do that, but on this particular one, I don't. Okay, so I want to remove that money from the head area here. So that's why I need to have that layer mask put in there, and I need to have black over white to remove all of this money around the head here. Okay, all right. Okay, so that's one technique. Another technique is to get an image off the internet, right? To get an image off the internet. And so let's do that. So here's the image I used from the internet. And what I did was I duplicated that layer Here it is. And after I duplicated that layer, I went in and I um, changed the blending mode to color dodge, right? And then I had to go in and do image adjustments, invert, okay? And then I had to add my threshold layer. And then what I did was I kind of selected all three layers and I did a duplicate layers above that. And then I merged those layers to get a new layer. And then what I did was I painted black all around the head. Okay. So I went in and I grabbed my brush tool and I made sure I had black and I just painted all around. Um, and then once that was done, I will copy this layer. So what I did was I went select all, edit, copy, merged, and then I pasted it onto this image and I resized it, make sure my show transform controls were selected and I resized it and placed it where I wanted it to go, okay? Um and if I turn off this layer, here's the mask layer and then the eye layer that I will eventually have to paint. I'm going to paint that in green here and then here's the mask layer. So I kind of separated them out and made new layers for them. And we can see that over here. So we've got the eyes, we've got the head, we've got the money. Okay. So I kind of separated them out so that I could then print them individually, like what I showed you back on the slide deck. Okay. And then what else did I do? Oh yes, I found this stock image and I thought it was perfect because it was a needle with the Benjamin inside and that was perfect. But what you want to do is kind of add a black and white layer. So if we look at this, this was originally actually it was a black and white, but I want to make sure it's fully black and white. So I added in this black and white, I add a little bit of contrast. And then I again selected these layers and I by holding down the shift key, I duplicated the layers, okay. And then I right clicked on it and I said merge layers and um now what I did was I went in with this actually I think I would use a lasso tool, but you could also use your quick selection tool because what I want to do is I want to turn the Benjamin area into a negative or to invert this because right now if I were to light paint this, it would it would it wouldn't be a let's go to select mask to see how smooth this is. And let's see how it looks against the overlay so I can kind of feather this out and I can add a little bit of contrast and make it really look nice. Maybe shift the edges a little bit, smooth it out, feather it, add a little bit of contrast. Okay. It's not it's right now this is a positive and we want to make this a negative. Okay, so we're going to go over here and go to invert. That'll make this into a negative and then go select, deselect. And by turning this into a negative, when we go to light paint it, it'll then make it a positive. Okay, so this is kind of old photography terminology that you don't really have to deal with so much with digital photography. But in old photography, everything was always a negative, and then when you made prints from the negatives, it became a positive. Well, that's what we need to do here because we're going to be light painting this and turning this into a positive later. So if we go to our original image here, we can see that if I turn on the needles, that we have a series of four needles that are basically negatives right now. But when I go to paint them, they will be positives. Okay. And I've also put, you notice, a layer mask around each of these and kind of blended them in to make them look nice. Because when I took it from the image here, what I did was I took this same lasso tool and I kind of just drew around it like this, and I left a little bit of black around the edges purposefully, because I wanted to have a little bit of a border around, a little bit of a black border around each needle so that they would stand out against each other. Okay. So if I go to select and mask, I can smooth that out. I can smooth that. I can feather that a little bit. I can give a little bit of contrast. And then feather this a little more. There we go. That's actually, no, that's too much of feathering. I want to make sure I have black all around the needle. Oh, and I'm going to shift this down a little bit. Make this, actually, I'm going to shift this up a little bit and expand out the shift a little bit. There we go. Okay. So now I can go edit copy. And when I come over here, I can then paste that in, edit, paste. There we go. There's the needle and whoops, edit, undo. Where did I put that needle? There we go. And I can move that needle and there's a little bit of black around the edge um, so that it stands out. And so let's delete this because look at this final one. You can see how there's like a little bit of black around these needles. You see that? Um, just to make those, especially the needle part here, stand out. Okay? To make everything stand out and have its be its own separate design. And then I put in the text. We're going to use the text over here and use all types of different fonts and all different sizes. And you can even like manipulate the text over here if you want. So if we click on one of the text layers, you can even kind of manipulate it and do different types of styles. And then once you're done, you always have to make sure you click on check mark and that sets it. Okay. You can make your text a little grayed out like I did here if you want, which will add a little bit of a different value tone when I go to paint these in yellow. So like the more gray or the darker the text or the images, then the more light will be blocked, right? And so not as much light will be able to get through it, and so it'll be a little bit, possibly a little bit darker. And you can create different value tones, which is going to be a whole lot more interesting, okay, than just having everything in white and everything in black. Okay, so I recommend that you definitely do that. That you have a variety of value tones in here and that you overlap, but make each piece separate. Make each piece with a little bit of black maybe around the edges. Make each piece um, in the end individual so that when you paint everything and put it all together, it'll work. And how you'll know it'll work is when you look at this, you can see that each part is easily recognizable, right? Each part is easily recognizable. Um, there's nothing that's being covered. Um, and we know clearly from this presentation what layers are going to be printed and what their colors are going to be, right? And so this is going to have a total of 4 layers to make this project, okay? All right, so hopefully this helps. You definitely want to watch this entire video all the way through so that you understand how it all works. You want to make sure that you use layer masks. You want to make sure that possibly you need to take different parts of of one image, like I did with the face, and break it into sections. Like I have a section here just for the mask, a section just for the eyes, and then the rest of her head and so forth. Okay. So you may have to do that as well. And, look carefully at all these layers and see how it all works together.